Let's get together to co-create a breakthrough for freedom of energy, sustenance, healing, and regeneration of the human vessel. Welcome to FESIG, the Free Energy Special Interest Group, where science meets spirituality in the quest for truth and knowledge to free humanity and transform this planet into a paradise. Hi everyone, welcome to FESIG's 89th meeting. Today is the 2nd of June. Pontus, can I have the agenda up on the PowerPoint? Thank you. Today is the 2nd of June and we have very special speakers today. Well, we made it a point to select some of the best to be presenting or to talk about what they do and how they can assist humanity's progression in this free energy special interest group platform where science meets spirituality, to share knowledge and to co-create a paradise on earth. Here we are. So this is the free energy special interest group, and we were have been around for about 5 years now, 4+ years. We have actually had about, I think, 130 speakers or so, because we've done that many videos. And we do have, although science is quite a dry subject, but it's a science meets spirituality platform. So we do have more than 300,000 views now, I think. Yeah, because it's very interesting all that is shared here through our channel. And it's a lot to learn from some of the most brilliant minds, very special, unique people who are involved with alternative energy and free energy. Yeah, and energy encompasses everything, basically. It's not just the technology of coming up with alternative electricity supply, right? So if we could scroll down a bit, Pontus, we can look at the agenda. Yeah. You can go slide by slide, it's okay, very quickly. So we have our co-chairs, Dr. Fresfresel, Pontus Hefsger, and James Rink with us here today. As always, thank you, bros. Okay, so if we go down a bit, yeah, our objectives, you can go to our website, truevisionofpeace.com /FESIG.html, and you see all the mission statement, the objectives, and everything that we do here. Okay, you scroll down a little bit more, Pontus, so I could see the agenda. Yeah, do go to our YouTube channel. We have a BitChute as well, but YouTube's still ongoing with us, so we're fine. So if we look at the agenda right now, Pontus. Okay, so we have 2 speakers today. For the first session, we have renowned author Jason Shurka, who is very, very popular with the with the community, the awakening community, consciousness activist community. Jason is of the Academy of Divine Knowledge, and he will answer your questions live on his book, The Pyramid Code, and the other writings of his, especially the light system as well, TLS mission updates and all that. So, well, he'll be talking about ET technologies if you ask him, both physical and spiritual technologies. It's very interesting if you had a chance to read the Pyramid Code. And then the second, after we had the session with Jason, then we would adjourn to the second session where another very special person's going to talk about his work, laboratory naturopathic doctor, Dr. Johnny Delirious, PhD, talks about his abduction, recovering from hepatitis, and entering the group mind of the Greys and assisting his patients to recover with his Master Survivor program. And then after the Q&A session with Dr. Johnny, then I will adjourn the meeting to the 90th FESIG meeting on the 7th of July, 2021, where we will get some other special speakers to will move you with what they know and do. All right. So if you want to contact me, write to Crystal at truevisionofpeace.com. All right. If the next slide, please, Pontus. So you can write to me if you've got anything to offer or you want to volunteer or anything like that. truevisionofpeace.com/FESIG.html is our website. And of course, we have our R&D team. Pontus is the head of the R&D team, and Dr. Fresfrezel is the chairperson of our R&D team, and we meet every week. Yeah, and we are helping inventors by sort of like incubating their prototypes and helping to protect them with the security and the incubation facilities that we will be, hopefully once the funds come in, well set up to do that. And finally, eventually, once they've got their financial freedom through us, we will be open sourcing their technologies, and that way everyone's safe. Right. So, okay. So if you stop sharing screen now, I'm going to introduce Jason. Not much to do. Jason doesn't have much time. Okay. So I want to introduce Jason. Jason Shurka was born on the 26th of 1997. He's an American author, coach, speaker, and real estate investor. Shurka is known for his coaching programs and workshops that aim at helping individuals reach a higher level of awareness in order to align with the greatest potential. He has been featured in several media outlets, including the New York Weekly, LA Wire, The American Reporter, Radio Public, and last but not least, Yahoo Finance, PR Web, The Jewish Star, and others. Jason started his career in 2015 when he was still in college for Signature Investment Group. In 2018, Shurka was appointed as the vice president. As of December 2020, Jason has created an online community known as the Academy of Divine Knowledge, where he teaches individuals from all around the globe who are seeking access to higher levels of awareness. Jason was approached by a clandestine organization in 2018 June, known as the Light System, TLS. TLS is a powerful, undercover, and divine organization composed of roughly 7,000 initiated agents around the world. I believe TLS has been around in the galactic level for a couple of thousand years, Jason. So in June of 2020, Shurka was given a document known as the Pyramid Code, and on September 9, 2020, he went public with it. Since then, he has appeared on several television shows, sharing in-depth information about the TLS and other enlightening topics. TLS is an international organization with 7,000 individuals, and not all agents are human. Blueprint of consciousness is going to be like in the future, and that's what he can talk to you about. So I have prepared quite a number of questions for you, Jason, because I'm also excited with the answers you can give me, because I have read your Pyramid Code audiobook. Right. Question number one, I'm going to fire away. After I am done with my questions, I will invite the floor to put your hand up so you can ask your questions live with Jason, especially after our co-chair, Dr. Fresfrezel, has done his as well. Okay.
Before you begin with your questions, there are a few things I have to correct you on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, if I did anything wrong.
The Pyramid Code is not my book. I didn't write it. It's more of a document that was given to me. In regards to TLS, you can call them an international organization. I would call them a universal organization. They don't just work here on Earth. There were a few other things that I don't remember now. But yeah, just to kind of sum everything you set up, I come from a business background. That's what I do. That's what I did, at least. And a few months ago, in about June, just about a year ago, things kind of took a turn in my life. In September, I put out a document that was given to me, which was my choice to do. I wasn't forced to do anything. I chose to do it. And ever since, a lot of things sort of opened up. So I just want to clarify that, number one, I'm not initiated into TLS as of yet. I hope to be one day, but I'm not an initiated member of those roughly 7,000 initiated agents into the system or organization, whatever you want to call it. And on top of that, again, I did not write the pyramid code. The only part of the pyramid code that I wrote is the beginning opening letter, which is said, I write it as, this is what you're about to read, and I sign it with my name. And then the pyramid code begins. All in all, it's 44 pages in English, and originally in Hebrew, and 31 pages that was just then translated to 9 different languages. So I just want to make it clear that it's not my book. I do have books that I've written. The pyramid code is not one of them. It was just a document that I published.
Right. Since you're talking about the 7,000 members of the TLS, that is fascinating, and not all of them are humans. So I presume this is, like you say, it is not an international group, but it is a universal one, isn't it? So how are the 7,000 members recruited?
That's a good question. So again, I said I'm not formally a part of the organization in terms of being initiated, because there's a process that you go through. You can call it like the equivalent of training. The real question would be, well, how do they get, like, why would they choose one person over the other in the first place? And I'd like to emphasize and sort of really reiterate the fact that whether you're a part of it or not doesn't mean you're better than anybody else. It just means that you have a specific resonance, a specific energy that was needed for a specific purpose at a specific point in time. And if you fit a specific criteria for what they need at that point in time, you will be approached. That's how these things work. So you can, there are people, because people are under the impression that you have to be this like Buddha light being sort of thing to be a part of that. No, that's not true at all. There are people of all walks of life, of all levels of spirituality. Some are very physical in terms of their awareness and mindset. Some are not and are on a higher level, spiritually speaking. But they have anywhere from hackers that turn red lights into green lights if there's somebody that needs to get through a street very, very fast. They have connections pretty much anywhere in order to get their mission and operations executed successfully. And all in all, their ultimate purpose and mission is to help assist, not do it for us, but help assist humanity in reaching a higher level of awareness. That's not to say that they're your heroes or your saviors. Nobody's your hero and nobody is your savior. The only person that's going to save you is you. And the only people that are going to save humanity is humanity. That's where this starts and that's where this ends. There are guides on the way. And TLS is one of the organizations, of many, by the way, that are here to help. But they will not do anything for you or for us. They will not interfere in our natural evolution of awareness and consciousness, because that would be taking away our freedom of choice. So things like elections, they will not interfere with. Things like natural disasters that are not necessarily natural because there are individuals on the other side inducing those disasters, they've stopped in the past, like earthquakes and storms and things of that nature. But that's the sort of nature of the type and level of the organization you're speaking of over here. And they don't just have to do with physical human beings. They also have to do with physical extraterrestrial life, not also, if you want to call it like light beings and higher dimensional beings that are not physical. But when I'm speaking of extraterrestrials, we're talking about physical entities that you can speak to, that you can touch, that you can smell, that you can hug, that just look a little bit different than us. Some are similar looking to human beings. Some do not resemble us whatsoever.
So I just want to ask you the question, Jason. Okay, so the TLS organization is not it is a universal one. So therefore, it is not focusing on planet Earth, to help planet Earth and its beings here only, right? It's like is helping the other planets as well towards ascension.
For example, on May 26th, just a few days ago, about 6-7 days ago, a week ago, I was given the ability and permission to disclose an operation that they're working on with an extraterrestrial race from the planet known as TZIA, Tzia. This race, this planet has already been spoken about for the past few thousand years. Nobody's heard of them because most people, number one, don't read things like the Zohar or Psalms written by King David and others. On top of that, they also don't necessarily know how to interpret and translate it. So if you look at Tzia, which is written about already 2,000 years ago, the translation interpretation will interpret it to a place on Earth, and it's not. Tzia is a different planet with a different race. They look like us. They're more Norwegian looking. They're very tall, anywhere between 7 to 9 feet tall. Really like good looking Norwegian people, blonde hair, blue eyes. That's what we're talking about here. Different language, different culture. They have a water shortage on their planet. So for the past very long period of time, they've been coming here and going to other places to get water to help them combat their water shortage on their planet. It's very hot on their planet. So to answer your question of how TLS will help other places, not just Earth, is they're cooperating in an operation called Operation Water. And Operation Water is an ongoing operation where TLS as an organization is cooperating with the people of Tzia as they come here to take water from the ocean, because they do have technology to convert salt water into fresh water. They also have technology to condense that water into very, very small quantities and then uncondense it, or whatever the right word would be, to be able to bring it back to its natural volume and form. So let's say, and I'm just throwing out numbers, you take 1 million gallons of water and condense it to a gallon. You then go back to where you came from, you uncondense it, and then they fly over their planet and create the equivalent of rain. Instead of giving their people water, they create rain to give the planet water so it can continue producing vegetables. They don't have animals and they don't have fruits. The only thing they eat is vegetables, and they are vegans because of that, by the way. So all in all, the physical characteristics don't matter so much. They're interesting. I know a lot of people like them, but that's not going to be what changes the world here. What changes the world is when humanity starts to understand what a higher level of awareness looks like and what that will look like when we achieve that higher level of awareness. So with that being said, TLS helps other races. They also help planet Earth in many ways and humanity in many ways, in most of the time done through subliminal ways without people even understanding what's going on.
Are you the only one, the contact person that TLS has appointed to bring information about TLS to the planet?
So based on my understanding until now, and my understanding is very limited, but based on my understanding up until this point, I was not supposed to be the person doing this right now, speaking on behalf of them right now and revealing their existence for the first time ever in their existence. To my knowledge, I wasn't supposed to be that person. It was actually given and tasked to the individual who wrote the Pyramid Code and who wrote another book called Rays of Light, which we're now working on, finally persuading him on allowing certain portions of that book to come out, because he was very hesitant with that as well. And to make a long story short, he refused. He didn't want to do that. He kind of backed off and he said, listen, he's like an older guy, you know, he's successful in his life. He's well known in his world for what he does, which is not this, you know, all of what we're talking about here. He's been working with TLS and for TLS in many ways for the past 10 years undercover. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows what he does. They think he's somebody completely different, as a matter of fact. And, you know, he's a businessman. He's very, that's literally where he comes from. That's his world. That's his life.
And you've met him in person, physically.
Yeah, I speak to him almost every day.
And the name's Ray.
That's not his real name. That's his anonymous.
Pseudonym.
He still wants to remain anonymous for his own purposes of privacy. And again, remember what's going on right now with me just over the past 8 months is exactly what he didn't want to happen to him. He doesn't want to have to answer questions. He wants to live his life quietly. He wants to spend his time with his family. He wants to just live a regular life, enjoy his life, die, and whatever happens after then, so be it. And I'm sure most people would probably choose the same thing, because for him to come and step out and share what it is that he's done and he does and he goes through at this point almost on a day-to-day basis, a lot of people call you crazy. A lot of people criticize you. A lot of people put you down, and he chose not to have to deal with it. So I came into the picture not to come into this role. That wasn't even something that was going through my mind. I just came into the picture after he gave me the document and a few other things that happened before then with meetings that we had. And I did my best to persuade him just to put the document out, the pyramid code. And he came back and he said, listen, you want to put this out so bad, no problem, but you're going to publish it. You're going to take my name out of it. You're going to change everybody else's name in it with the exception of your own and the rabbi's name, because there's a name of a rabbi that appears in that document as well. And you're going to put it out. And I guess I didn't really understand the magnitude of what he was telling me at the time. I know that I could have said no if I chose to say no, but what kind of person would I be if I said no after I tried to persuade him to do that very thing? So I accepted. I said, okay. And then started a period of a couple months of translating this document from Hebrew to English and figuring out how I'm going to get this to the world. Because when he came to me, I said, okay, TLS has all the power in the world. They have power literally everywhere that if they need something done, they'll get it done. They'll figure out a way to get it done. And they always do. So I said, put me on the news, get me on the top, just put me on the top and I'll be the one to spread the message. And they said quite simply, it doesn't work that way. We can do it, but we're not going to. You're on your own. You're going to figure it out, and good luck. And I was very frustrated at the time, but looking back, I wouldn't have done it any differently, because everything that I've achieved up until today was because they made me do it, perceived to be on my own. I know for a fact that they've been helping me behind the scenes. They're just not letting me know that.
You've been chosen.
I don't know what I've been. All I know is I was given a document. I put that document out. I didn't understand at the time. Maybe I didn't think of it, and it was a blessing in disguise, but I didn't think of what the next steps would be. Again, I come from a background of real estate. I come from a background of business. That's what I was being primed to do ever since I was a little kid. And I had my whole kind of way ahead of me paved, everything was done. I knew where my money was coming from. I knew where everything was coming from. I didn't have to do anything out of the ordinary to succeed in my life to a great deal. And this happened, and suddenly it started taking over, and from September until December, I was working full-time in real estate and full-time in this. And there came a point where I said, listen, again, I thought that this was just, I had a document, I had to put it out. And it kept unfolding, and it's continuing to unfold. And it's just kind of the way it's happening now. Until in December, I sat down and I worked with my family. That's our family business. And I sat down with them and I said, listen, I love you guys, but I got to go, I'm going to choose a different path. And it was difficult, it was difficult to the only thing that I knew where my next dollar was coming from, I gave up willingly. Nobody told me to do that. I just felt that if I'm going to do this, let's do it. I'll put my all into it. So I gave up all that. I told them I'm there for you always if anybody needs help, but I don't want a dollar from the business anymore. You guys continue doing what you're doing, and I'm going to go this way. And that's when everything just opened up completely, and different initiatives that I built, and now the Academy of Divine Knowledge that I built with the help of incredible powers behind me that made that happen. I mean, just with the names of the individuals and the teachers and special guests that are on that platform, like David Icke and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Judy Mikovits and Del Bigtree and all these people, it's like, that's my proof that I'm being helped, even though it looks like I'm doing it on my own, I'm not. So that's how we pretty much got to.
You know what? We're really grateful to your courage for doing it, because when I listened to the audio book that you had published of the Pyramid Code, my heart really resonates with it so much. And you got the best person to read the audio out, Mensa Kartigesa, is that her name? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so soothing, so beautiful. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too quiet. If you could up the volume, it'd be great. Yeah, you know, it resonates with me so much. It's kind of like it's triggering some cellular memories in me as well. Oh, I've been there or was there in Egypt during the times of Pharaoh. And you were talking about, Ray was talking about him being the son of Rabbi AA, and this is the lineage of the what's the race called? The Fatah souls, the Fatah souls, yeah. And the pharaohs, the great pharaohs and the high priests, they are the original Fatah souls, aren't they? I just wanted to ask this question now that we're talking about Fatah souls. Are they connected with the Patals that the Andromedans told Alex Collier that we are the original Homo sapiens sapiens, human
Don't-
beings that we are? Are they?
my simple answer would be everything is connected to everything, but I have no idea how to answer that question.
So they are really of the divine lineage, aren't they? Because they have got like godlike godlike powers. Yeah, there's no time, no space, right? So that's incredible. I mean, so your friend Ray has cellular memories, remembering his past lives. So that's how you got to come
Well,
out with this book.
we all do. We're just not aware of it. Everybody has that memory stored somewhere, somehow, someplace. The difference between the individual who remembers it and the individual who doesn't is the level of awareness that they're able to access. But it doesn't mean that you don't have that memory somewhere. It just means that currently, at a current state and level of awareness, we may not be able to perceive it because it extends beyond the limitations of our current level of awareness.
Right. Right. So you were talking about the TLS. So I'm going back to the TLS a little bit now. The TLS has so many advanced ET technologies. I suppose with these advanced technologies, you were talking about the rescued children from the dumps, the deep underground military bases with energy weapons, electromagnetic laser pulsation to seize the malicious adrenochrome operations of the cabal. Could you tell us more about the technology called the transducing that the TLS uses to take over the underground train system operating these malevolent projects?
Yeah, I don't know how much I'm allowed to discuss about the details of transducing. What I can tell you is that it's not a physical technology. It's a way of manipulating frequency and energy to induce either thoughts on somebody, or you can call it the equivalent of mind control. Only what's the intention behind that using it? So when it comes to TLS, their intentions are for good. I don't know of anybody that knows how to use transducing that's not in TLS. Simply because I know the person that created the technique of transducing in the first place. So when it comes to that, it's simply a way of kind of, for lack of a better word, manipulating energy and frequency to cause a person to either do something or not to do something. So in that way, when they take over, when they take over the train, what they're really doing is, to my knowledge at least, it might be much wider than this. I told you again, my knowledge is limited, so I can only share what I do know, but that doesn't mean it's everything whatsoever. When it comes to the train system, it's more so, let's say, doing a transducing tactic to the person conducting that train. Doesn't have to be there. I've never been there, but I don't believe that there's a conductor in the front of the train. There is an operator that makes the train move. So wherever that operator is, I would assume that the transducing technique is done to the operator to have them operate the train differently or not raise any red flags if they're taking over a train system in order to get from A to B very, very quickly. Those trains can travel from New York to Portugal in a matter of 21 minutes.
Certainly. Next question is the TLS working together with the Earth Alliance for the benefit of humanity and the Alliance to smoke out the cubbyholes of the dumps?
I don't know of any other names of organizations that they work with. I do know that there are other great organizations out there that are doing divine work, but I have no affiliation with them whatsoever.
Yeah, because when Jean Decode was going on rah, 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 talking about how the military alliance saving the children and all that, they're using weapons that is not known to humanity. So I presume this must be coming from the TLS. Yeah.
It's possible. It's possible that it comes from other places as well. TLS is
Yeah.
not the only organization out there doing good.
Sure. Could you tell us more about the Fata Soul's magnets, lasers, and light technologies used to build the pyramids?
It doesn't come from Earth. It comes from their planets. The Fata Sol are not of human descent, so-called, and for the most part, neither are we. I mean, just look at the Zoom call right now. Look how much diversity there is. You know, there's Asian, darker skin, lighter skin, white, black, this, that. There's so many different people, and nobody seems to question the fact of how did that diversity come to fruition? Is it really the fact that we came from a fish that evolved into a lizard, that turned into a mammal, that eventually turned into an ape, that turned into a black human being in Africa, and then somehow a massive surge of diversity came out of that? Or could it be that our diversity actually stems from the fact that we are the offspring of different races? And if you go according to the pyramid code, and I would say logic, by the way, we are the offspring of different races. Now, even when it comes to evolution, and I'm simplifying it, I understand that, but even when it comes to the evolution narrative, yeah, we evolve for sure to a certain extent. But the premise of evolution is you evolve because your last form didn't serve. So that form dies off and the form that succeeds the last form continues. Well, then it's a very simple question we have to be asking ourselves. If we came from a fish that evolved to X to Y to Z, then how come the fish still exists? Because according to evolution, that should have been extinct. Same thing with the ape, same thing with the lizards, same thing with everything else. So I don't know the answer. I'm just raising the question. And it makes us think, is the narrative that we're being taught today when it comes to evolution absolutely true in the big picture that they're telling us it is? Or is there either intentional deception or unintentional deception? Because I don't believe everybody's out there to hurt you. I think that people really do believe certain narratives because it makes sense to them until they see things a different way.
So Jason, if we are part of the whole, right, we're all connected as one anyway, and the TLS is here as a bridge to help us get in touch. How is the TLS helping us with the intergalactic communication? Has it already started? Well, it had with you. So how does one go about contacting the right ET specialists to help us build advanced technologies here so we can progress and heal ourselves? Because this is like so badly maimed over here. It's so unjust what they've been doing to us. Yeah, we need technologies to pull us out.
Yeah, I think we should start with a very wide understanding that it's not anything that anybody is doing to us. What they are doing to us is a reflection of what we chose to allow to happen. That's first and foremost. The more we put the blame on others, and there are evil people out there, people that truthfully would probably be better not living on this earth, but that won't solve it. If they died tomorrow, that won't solve our problem of evil people and organizations doing harm to humanity. The root of all of this should be in the question, or could be in the question of, let's ask ourselves, why do they exist in the first place? Why did Hitler exist in the first place? Why did slavery exist in the first place? Why do we see V passports coming into fruition right now? Why do we see those things happening, and who's allowing them to happen? And we tend to put the blame on the few who are controlling the many when we forget that the many are allowing the few to control us in the first place. Because truthfully, all we have to do is say no. A lot of people are under the impression that we need this incredible technology to save us. No, the only thing we need to save us is our own freedom of choice exercised by saying no. Now the question is, why are people not saying no? Because it's easy to say no. It's hard to get somebody to the point to understand why they should say no in the first place. That's where awareness comes in. So all in all,
Absolutely.
TLS,
Absolutely.
they do focus on taking down certain organizations and individuals and depriving those individuals and organizations of their resources and their finances and their money and their gold and their diamonds and their chemicals and their weapons and their technology and everything else in between. But that's not going to do anything big picture. It will solve things temporarily. The question is, what's stopping those individuals and organizations from being replaced in the first place? And what's stopping them from being replaced is we change the awareness of what allowed them to exist in the first place, which is we, the people. That's why TLS focuses more so. They do both sides at the same time, but they focus more so on changing and improving and elevating and expanding the awareness of the masses instead of taking down the few who control the many. Because the root is in the awareness of the masses. Our reality that we experience today is a reflection of the collective consciousness, not the minority consciousness, the collective consciousness. What we see in the world around us is what we collectively are vibrating at, not individually, but collectively. And that's where the change needs to be done. We have to stop looking for saviors and heroes and organizations and presidents that are going to be there and save us. It's not going to happen. The saving comes when we are able and we embrace the fact that we have the power to make that choice, to say no, and in some cases to say yes, when it comes to certain information and knowledge and wisdom that's given to us that expands beyond our current levels and our current limitations of awareness. That's what we need to do, in my opinion, in order to move forward.
Right. Well, coming back to the pyramid code, the pharaohs brought with them their spiritual and physical tools that would manipulate gravity, lifting megalithic stones, and using their EMP, electromagnetic pulsation, and the EMLP, to electromagnetic laser pulsation, to build massive pyramids. And in those days, you had 666 pyramids originally. Now we have about 1,000 left, right? Pointing north. So does the government have these technologies? Is it Russia and some other countries as well? This is really awesomely powerful technologies.
Okay, so first of all, there's about under 100 or 100,000 or 80,000, I don't remember, but that's the amount of pyramids left on Earth today. The reason for the number, because people might be turning their heads to the number that you just said of 666,666, is because that number is not a satanic number. It's actually a good frequency. All frequencies can be used for positivity. But if you're intelligent enough, which the people in power today are, they take powerful frequencies like 666, which is 18. And by the way, 18 is the resonance of life. If you look at the Schumann's resonance of 7.83 hertz, add those numbers up, you get 18 as well. So there's a resonance and an energy to life in and of itself. That's what 666 is. But the people today were smart enough and intelligent enough, those in power at least, to take 666 and disguise it as a satanic number. So we stay away from the very thing that's here to help us live and expand our level of awareness. Same thing with the number 13, by the way. It's not an unlucky number. 13, if you take the word love in Hebrew, which is, by the way, one of the languages that the pharaohs used at the time before Judaism existed, love is ahava. Ahava is made of 4 letters in Hebrew. You take those 4 letters and you convert them to their corresponding numbers, and there's a code for that in the Hebrew language. That will give you the number 13. So we got 13 that's disguised as unlucky, that's really love. We got 666, which is 18, that's disguised as satanic, which is really life. And people don't understand that those things are here to help us, disguised as things that are here to hurt us, so we stay away from them. So I just wanted to reiterate that fact in case anybody is confused about those numbers. But what was your question? Because I don't remember.
No, my question was who is in possession of those age-old technologies, the EMP and the EMLPs? That will be really awesome to have that in possession.
Yeah, so there's electromagnetic pulsation, an electromagnetic laser pulsation. By the way, EMP is something that you can look up. It's not a secret. EMLP is something that the military is starting to use already on a very low scale. They don't, at least to my knowledge, the public level of the military has like child's play technology compared to what we're actually talking about. If you were to ask Ray, he believes, he doesn't know, but he believes that Russia and Israel, if I'm not mistaken, have possession of these technologies. The question
So
is,
these technologies are not working against gravity, as we say. We like so. I mean, we always say anti-gravity is anti. It's not anti. It's not working against gravity, because if we work against gravity, everything will fall apart, right? So the force of energy, the desire for union, the love between creation and nature must work for gravity instead of against it, isn't it? So how does this technology, the EMP and EMLP, work for gravity and yet be able to lift those megalithic stones to build the pyramids?
well, you're saying the same thing, only it's a change, it's a difference in terminology. It's almost saying anti-racism or pro-unity. One is more productive than the other because anti-racism keeps racism alive, just literally in the word itself. Whereas pro-unity is setting the same intention as anti-racism, only it's doing something that's a lot more powerful. So when you work against gravity or when you work with gravity, the intention, again, it's a play on words, because when you work with gravity, that's another way of saying I am manipulating gravity to do things like levitation, to move crafts in ways that make absolutely no sense according to our limited awareness of the laws of physics that humanity is aware of today. So when it comes to EMP, EMLP, not just that, electromagnetic pulsation, electromagnetic laser pulsation, there's certain technology that works with the sun, there's certain technology that works through magnetism. Those comprise and those make up the physical technology side of their crafts and many other forms of technology that they've built. But that's not all you need in order to do what they're doing, like lifting megalithic stones. On top of that, well, no, I take that back. To lift megalithic stones, the physical technology is a massive part of it, but you take things like the staffs that the pharaohs used. Those work on EMP and EMLP, but you need something called the power of thought to connect your consciousness to that staff in the first place. So the staff is a physical staff. The power of thought is what allows that physical staff that they have that's in their hieroglyphics, like the snake and the ankh, to become an extension of their consciousness. And only then, when you unite and create a balanced synergy between the physical technology, EMP, EMLP, magnetism, sun technology, and the power of thought, the spiritual technology, then you're able to do things like move a stone that weighs 100,000 tons, or operate a craft and travel intergalactically 50 billion light years in a matter of 4 minutes, according to Earth time. Physical technology is not enough. So people like Bob Lazar, people like Jeremy Corbell, they're under the impression when it comes to extraterrestrial crafts that element 115 is this element that we need to stabilize in order to make the craft work in and of itself. And what they're missing, and they're not wrong, I don't know about element 115, but when it comes to physical technology, that's not the only thing that is needed to operate in a way that extends beyond the laws of physics as we know it today. Crafts work in the way that they work today and back then because the craft becomes an extension of the operator's awareness and consciousness.
Absolutely.
And it so happens to be that when you see a craft moving at 50,000 miles an hour and making a sharp right turn or coming to a standstill in 1 second, without exploding and without the operator in that craft splattering against the wall, it's a lot, and there's a logical conclusion that we can make instead of listening to others. There's a logical conclusion that we can make that the operators of these crafts are operating at a very high level of awareness, one that extends way beyond our current laws of physics as we know it today.
Right.
That
Yeah, one last statement, Jason, before I pass the microphone over to our co-chair Fres and James. Yeah, I just wanted to say that everything within the universe receives life force and beingness from natural electricity. I'm talking about electricity because this is what we do here, and realizing how important this work is. Okay, scientists have yet to find the source that powers the heart, brain, earth or sun that keeps us vitally alive. And until we find this naturally occurring source of electricity, we can then unlock the secrets behind creation and all that is sacred. And that's so beautiful. That's coming from your Pyramid Code audiobook. And I urge everyone to go to Jason's site, which is linked up to our website. When you go to our website, you can find his name and hover over it and click on it, and it takes you to his site. And you can find the Pyramid Code and listen to it. It's so beautiful and it makes a lot of sense. And thank you for doing that, Jason. And so over to you, Fres and James. Fres first.
Thank you very much, Crystal. Basically, you were talking on frequencies and EM, LP, and some of the others. And what I'm picking up also is the play on words, so that a symbol, as I talk with my colleagues all the time, a picture is 1,000 words, a symbol is 1,000 pictures. And a lot of times the words that we use or the symbols associated with words, the letters and stuff, have both physical representation, as you said, the electromagnetic laser pulse or something like that, or is it a electromagnetic low frequency, with the P that sounds like an F, and so we get different words. And so that was the first thing that I was wondering about. Are we dealing with multiple interpretations of the same code letters and code words?
I'm not sure. I know that it's, I mean, I don't know the frequency in and of itself of what that laser technology is, but it is in fact a laser that connected, that you can actually see, those pictures that people kind of put together with a laser coming out of the apex of the pyramid. That's exactly what it looked like. And that was a form of communication, by the way, at the time. So whatever it was pointing at, today, every pyramid is facing north. But back then, they were facing the stars and constellations and planets that they were in communication with, not just stars and planets, but motherships as well. So those lasers were a form of call it like divine communication. In what way it works, I'm not sure, but it most definitely was a laser to my knowledge.
Okay. Basically, we're dealing with frequencies, and it's just the intensity or the what spectrum that you're in that frequency, light, sound, electromagnetic pulse of a planet, all are just different vibrations at a different intensity. Okay. One of the things that you brought up a little bit earlier was the becoming aware and being able to say no. Mm-hmm. Is there, from what your studies and stuff, is there a series of steps that an individual can do to bring them closer to the awareness of the possibility to say no?
Absolutely. The question is to say no to what? So I would say clarity is what we need. How do we change the vibration of our beingness in the first place? Well, on a very practical level, without getting too sort of spiritually oriented, on a super practical level, everything we speak, we become. Everything we eat, we become. Everything we listen to, we become. Everything we touch, we become. The common theme behind all of those mediums that I just said is what I like to call the energetic exchange. Whether we understand what's going on or not, there's always an energetic exchange occurring between animate objects, inanimate objects, what people call alive, what people call not alive, even though everything energetically is alive. There's always an energetic exchange going on. And what you interact with, you are exchanging with. And what you exchange with, by literal means of the definition of what an exchange is, you become. So when you start listening to higher vibrational music, music that's more in the frequencies of less beta and more theta, delta, and gamma, when you start eating foods that get their food from the highest source of life, as we know it today, physically speaking, which is the sun and the rain, that would be an implication of fruits, vegetables, nuts, herbs, things of that matter. What you eat, you become, you take on the literal vibration of the foods that you consume. If you eat a food that, there's no food that's not connected to source, even if it's a Dorito, it's still connected to source. The question is, what multiplicity of divine sparks, as we would call it, exists in that food? So let's say a Dorito may have 2 sparks, an apple may have 10,000. They're still connected. The question is to what extent and to what level. What you consume, you become, in direct alignment with that multiplicity of divine sparks in your food, connected to the sun and the rain. Music. What music are we listening to? Is it rap talking about killing, rape, murder, and stealing? Is it music talking about how you broke up with your girlfriend and you're sad? Is it music talking about how beautiful the world is and how beautiful everything else is and how humanity can actually come together and love one another? And if it doesn't have words, what frequency is that music at? Is it at a symmetrical frequency that causes the water in your body to literally take on a molecular formation of symmetry? Or is it a frequency of music that causes the water in your body to take on a literal molecular formation of asymmetry, like heavy metal, like music with curses in it, like music that's very distorted and static? It will distort the 70% of water that you're made of, which will then affect the way that you comprehend, the way that you perceive, the way that you speak, the way you do and are in your day-to-day life. When it comes to art, I'm just giving a bunch of different tools. Art, what about the art on your wall? A lot of people that are single and they're stuck being single and they don't know why, look on the wall. They generally have a picture of themselves. They generally have a picture of one person on the wall, even if it isn't themselves. They generally, when it comes to people that like diversity in terms of their sexual life, they generally have a lot of mirrors in their homes and their bedrooms. So it's like all these things, if we know how to read them, we know how to manipulate for a good purpose everything around us to manifest what it is that we want, because we're always manifesting. The question is, are we doing it consciously or subconsciously, consciously or unconsciously? So to answer your question directly, clarity is awareness. We first have to become clear in our mental state. To do that, we have to live in a clean body. The body is very important. A lot of people in the spiritual community are so focused on the soul, they forget about the body. You will never reach the level of the soul if you're living in a sick body. The body must be taken care of and must be in a healthy state in all aspects, whatever that means to you, in order to go the level above. It's almost like saying, you can't stand on top of the tree if its roots aren't sturdy. The roots are your body. The top of the canopy is your soul. People want to sit on the top of the canopy and disregard the health of the roots. You can't do that. So the body is first and foremost when it comes to achieving that higher level of awareness. How do you treat it? How do you love it? What care do you give to it on both the energetic level and the physical level? And I would say if we can start paying more attention to our body and our physical experience, contrary to what most people do, but pay more attention to our physical experience and balancing that, it will make it a whole lot easier to become aware to the point where we say no.
Excellent. We get into this discussion. I'm going to move this ahead just a little bit along the same line. You've enunciated how to change to a higher frequency. At the same time, we have this bombardment on our society to a lower frequency. But in a way, no matter where we get to, it ends up being a binary choice, one or the other. It's this very simple binary. We choose one set of frequencies over a different set of frequencies. Is it beneficial? Is it hard? Is it black? Is it white? Is it green? The thing that's interesting is that when we get aware, we move from this flat plane existence, this two-dimensional existence of it's either black or it's white. It's this floor, and we move around on it, and we start to realize there's another vector, which is up. And so all of a sudden, our awareness is expanded to a space, not just a plane. It's now into a space. But we still have that binary base root. Call it your shadow walking behind you in a sunny day. You're in a three-dimensional world, but your shadow is cast in a two-dimensional black and white being behind you. When we get into awareness into from 3D and above, we can simplify it, or it gets simplified or overly simplified into binary selections in that plane, so that you have a choice of going up and down in that new third dimension, but you have forward and backwards in that. So we start to realize that there is a multiplicity of vectors beyond this simple two-dimensional field that we look at. So even though it seems complicated to a lot of people that we're saying, oh, we're going to go into third and fourth dimensions and higher vibrations and stuff, it still boils down to choices in a binary. It just depends on what plane we're on. Is that what I'm picking up?
I would differentiate between the term dimensional awareness and dimensional power.
Okay, go for that, please.
Dimensional power breaks down, let's say, the first three dimensions to 1D is body, 2D is body and mind, 3D is body, mind, and soul. There are very few people today that are in third dimensional power, not third dimensional awareness, third dimensional power. Third dimensional power means you're using body, mind, and soul in unison and simultaneously with one another when you make decisions, when you live, when you do really anything. What fourth dimensional power looks like in fifth, sixth, seventh, I'm not sure. I don't know what that would translate to. I was taught in when it comes to TLS, the first three, which would be body, mind, and soul. So all in all, the reason why I'm differentiating between dimensional power and dimensional awareness is because they're two different things. Dimensional power is how many dimensions of yourself are you using simultaneously and in unison with one another. Dimensional awareness is what can you perceive right now. So when it comes to dimensional awareness, right now, to my understanding at least, we're in third dimensional awareness. So 2D, like you said, would be a line on this page or text on a screen. 3D would be including that whole other dimension of it. Then there's 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, 8D, 9D, and 10D. Again, to my understanding, other people say there are 12, other people say there are 7, other people say there are 11. So it really comes down to the teaching you want to go according to. In my opinion, I don't think that the number matters. I think that the way that they work matters, because the number won't bring us anywhere. The way that you move through them will bring us somewhere. So when you move through dimensional awareness, you could be in a third dimensional physical body holding fifth dimensional awareness. In that awareness, that will dictate the way you see things, the way you comprehend certain information, the way you do certain things, and what you're able to do in the first place. So let's take it like a game of chess. If you're a really good player, say, call it like a level 5 player, and I'm a level 3 player, there could be the same move in front of both of us. You'd see it and I won't. That's how awareness works. So when a person is in fifth dimensional awareness, not power, but fifth dimensional awareness over third dimensional awareness, they're able to perceive things that the person in third dimensional awareness will not even comprehend what they're looking at. So when people, the collective today, ask for proof about many things that are spoken about, take the whole vaccine issue that we're seeing today. People ask for proof. Take the free energy. People are asking for proof. All of these things, people want proof. And little do they know the proof is right in front of them. The only difference is that they can't perceive it because they're not in the level of awareness to comprehend it. They can see it, but they don't know what it is that they're seeing. So that would be the difference between awareness and power. Power more so gives you the ability of, they're very alike. There's a minor distinction between them. Awareness is what you can perceive and see. Power kind of goes along with it. So as you move through higher dimensions of awareness, you're embodying and working through more levels of higher dimensional power at the same time. But you can totally be at fifth dimensional awareness while embodying third dimensional power. That's what levitation is, by the way. That's what supernatural acts are. When we see human beings doing things that don't make sense according to our physical nature of understanding, it's because they've accessed a higher level of awareness in unison with a higher level of dimensional power that allows them to do things that were once thought to be impossible, like levitation, flight with the body, shifting your shape of the body, walking through physical objects. It's really just a change in density, frequency, and vibration. And as you move through these levels of awareness, as you move through these levels of dimensional power, you're able to do things that you once thought were impossible.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm going to switch it over to James Rink, our other co-host. James, what you got for us for questions today for a guest?
Well, hello there. Yeah, so welcome. Thank you, Jason, for joining us. So a question from the audience chat. What do you think about frequency? And can you explain, do you think there is matter or is there no matter?
Depends what level of awareness you're talking from. Depends what dimension you're talking about. Over here, there's matter. But this doesn't actually exist in another dimension in this way. So the awareness that both can exist simultaneously is important. To choose one over the other in terms of matter or no matter is, I would say, counterproductive, because in one dimension it exists. In another dimension, it exists differently. So the answer is yes to both and no to both, depending on what, my answer at least, depending on what dimension you're speaking from.
Okay, thank you. So Renee, why don't you go ahead and elaborate on that question? In the meantime, we have another question about the relationship between Rh negative blood. So do you have any information on that? Is that a human type blood or what? What do you think?
I don't know. What I would say is, when you say human type blood, what do you really mean? What is a human being if we're all offspring of something else? Are we human beings? Are we really only from Earth? Or as we see in the chemicals that make up our body, do we come from other places? So I don't know how to answer that question in terms of correlations to extraterrestrial life and Rh negative blood. But my question for whoever asked that was, how do you really define a human being in the first place?
Okay. Ron says consciousness creates matter. Thank you, Ron. All right. So I guess next question is Gaia in agreement with removal of water from her surface? What do you think of that?
They wouldn't be doing it if they weren't.
Okay. Thank you. So next question.
By the way, let me
Go ahead.
elaborate on that. Whoever asked that question, I don't know who you are, but I want to make you aware of the consciousness that your question is coming from. Your question is coming from the awareness that Earth does this, that the consciousness of Earth holds, no, this is mine. There's no such thing as mine in that level of awareness. So I understand why human beings in our collective current level of awareness say, what do you mean? Why would Earth ever let that? Well, we're one. Same reason why you would take a bullet for your child, because we're one. In terms of that level of consciousness, only not the same example. So in this way, if you want to ask them, they'll tell you that they're actually helping, because Earth has, in some cases, rising water levels, not everywhere. And that's not completely in line with the whole global warming thing, because that's another hoax in and of itself. The hoax is not that the Earth is warming or not. The hoax is to what degree and how is it happening, because they made a whole business out of that whole thing. The truth is, climate's been changing always. Climate change is real, not in the way that they're giving us the narrative. So are rising water levels. They change all the time. That's why you see canyons in places like Utah and Arizona, because there was once water somewhere and there's no longer water in that place. There's now water somewhere else. So this whole water shortage thing that we're under the impression that we have, fresh water, maybe they're not touching our fresh water anymore. They're touching our salt water, which according to their level of awareness and their information is something that is helping us, not hurting us, but people have mixed reviews on that one. So.
Okay. And so I'm assuming it's the Xi people that are doing this.
Yeah,
Taking the water. Yeah. Are they a feline race based on Mars?
No, they look like feline, as in like cats.
Yeah.
No, they look like human beings, blue eyes, blonde hair. I'll actually show you a sketch. Give me a second. Very, very human-like, only not human. Here it is. Very much like that, if you can see.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
About-
perfect.
She's about 7 to 9 feet tall. The only problem with this sketch is they don't have one strap on their shoulder. They have two. Everybody wears more or less the same thing. They walk barefoot. They eat vegetables. People think that that's not advanced. It is. We're under the impression that advancement has to do with computers, iPhones, wires, and man-made electricity. And that's the exact opposite of what true advancement looks like. So that's another thing that I would clear up, because I've heard people raise that question in the past.
Okay. Can you comment about deuterium in water? Is that problematic for our body's life force more so than fluoride and all the other toxins?
I've never heard of deuterium, so I can't comment on something I don't know.
Okay. Let's see here. Any other questions in the chat? Okay. In your book, can you elaborate more on this? Whoever does not reach the required consciousness will simply become extinct from the universe with no way of returning through reincarnation.
If you had a radio station on channel 3 and there's another channel that radio station is coming, or actually, let's put it this way. Let's say you have a computer with a hard drive and you're transferring everything from one hard drive to another hard drive, different frequency, different dimension, different place completely. The thing is with your first computer that you're transferring everything from, after you make the transfer, within a 15-day period, you're getting rid of that entire hard drive. All the contents of that hard drive are conscious, let's say, and they have a choice if they want to go to that new computer, that's a different body, that's a different company, that's a different software, or do they not? People are under the impression that what you just read is something negative. It's not negative. It's just a freedom of choice that we have. Do we want to move into the new dimensional level of awareness that we're moving into? TLS calls it gamma. Everybody else calls it fifth dimensional awareness. Or do we not? You can't force somebody to do it. They can choose. So the soul chooses. Am I going to go to this place or am I not? There will come a point where this level of awareness, which by the way is a reflection of our reality, will cease to exist. If awareness exists, so does our experience of being a human being. So does our experience of not just being a human being, but being anything, even in between lives. So it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's the way energy works. It's not meant to scare anybody. It's just, this is how the system works. It's almost like saying, if I drive a car over your leg, it's going to break your leg. And then you have a bunch of people saying, why would you say something like that? It won't break my leg. I'll be just fine. Now, people call it a bad thing that the car broke their leg, but it's not. It's just a reality. The car drives over your leg, it breaks your leg, it crushes the bone. So in that way, when we move, when that point comes, I don't know. But when we move to that fifth dimensional collective reality, the energy and awareness of the third dimension will cease to exist. At that point, anybody that chose out of their freedom of choice, and everybody's entitled to that because that's why we're here. Anybody that chose to be there will no longer exist. Now, just because your light signature doesn't exist, aka your soul, doesn't mean you don't exist, because you are not just even your soul. There is a group sort of thing that people may call God, that is all that is, that was, is, and ever will be. Moving forward, whether your light signature exists in this next so-called level of awareness and reality based on your freedom of choice does not mean you at the core level of you, and I'm talking beyond the soul, we're talking about the source of the soul. That will always exist because you can't destroy that. You could change the light signature, and that's what they're talking about.
Hang on, James, before you continue. This question was asked from Yan, who is in the Philippines, Adrian. Yeah, Adrian, is that all you want to ask? Okay, perhaps if I may add to this question is it because of the ascension, descension trough of 26,250 years has come to an end now for the ascension trough, that there is this cutting point where whoever couldn't reach the required consciousness will simply become extinct? Is that what it's meant? Because it's come to...
Everybody can reach the required consciousness. Nobody's left out of that. Not everybody chooses to. That's the difference. Everybody can. Everybody has infinite power. The question is, what do you choose to do with your freedom of choice? Now, when it comes to the astrological dates you're giving now, I do believe it has something to do with that, with the age of Aquarius. Absolutely. TLS will call it the age of love. Only the timelines are a little bit different. TLS will say the deadline to reach the age of love, collective fifth dimensional awareness, not just on Earth, but in the universe as a whole. And if you were to also ask TLS, we are the only individuals left that are not at that level of awareness. They give a deadline of 2192, if I'm not mistaken. It was,
right. So there is a deadline after all. Yeah. And that deadline has got something to do with the ascension trough.
Yeah, we're going to reach it no matter what. But if you do the calculation, that's about 180 years before the age of Aquarius.
What's the year again? 20?
I think 2192. It's 180 years from 2010, from 2012. From December 21st, 2012, it's exactly 180 years and 2 days. So December 23rd, 2192. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
But by the way, that doesn't mean that we can't reach it now. We can choose to do that as well. That's just the deadline of it will happen, whether anybody likes it or not. We're getting there.
Yeah, and why don't you speak out, Adrian, if you've got any further question to that before we let James take over the microphone again, if you want to. Go on then.
I have other questions, but it's basically not related to this one, but other questions concerning the history of his, when he wrote something in his book concerning the history of the history of those Egyptian high priests and the pharaohs, where the way you describe it in your book is the exact description of what Corey Good and David Wilcock called the pre-Adamites. And your description also of these people who went westward towards the South Americas are the exact descriptions of the Mayans or the Pleiadians who came hundreds of thousands of years before. So could you please elaborate on that topic? Because you see, according to Corey Good and David Wilcock, the pre-Adamites were not really, they're not the good guys, so to speak, but they were practically evil, and they were annihilated by the Elohim Council because of their great karma and sins, where their civilization was wiped out with a huge flood and flash frozen. And that's the cause of many ancient diggings there in Antarctica right now by the military industrial complex, and so on and so forth, finding out they have this huge bodies, 7 to 8 feet tall, with bulbous heads, with the exact description that you gave in your book. And but in your book, they were described as holy people, where they established themselves as gods and goddesses. Could you
They
comment on that one?
established themselves as gods and goddesses. They were seen as gods
Okay.
and goddesses from the people of the land at the time.
Yeah, because according to the book of Enoch, they were so evil that they were literally wiped out from the face of the earth. And of course, the survivors came and lived in ancient Egypt, and some came into South America, which started the civilizations of the Incas, the Mayans, and the Toltecs and whatnot. And even some of them were even secretly living in started civilizations inside the Vatican itself, controlling behind the scenes, where they also composed one of the families of the ancient Cabal, which many of the light groups are and the Global Alliance are fighting against right now. So they established themselves as gods and goddesses with power, of course, because according to Corey Good and David Wilcott, they have supernatural powers, and they're highly psychic and so on, which comes to mind. So could you
Yeah.
comment on that one?
If you go according to the pyramid code, they came here with good intentions. They didn't come here to hurt. Over time, as they began kind of interbreeding with mankind at the time and kind of doing their thing, they became more and more and more and more and more diluted and more and more and more and more corrupted. And then they started doing very negative things until their lineage was completely wiped out, which is what it speaks about in the pyramid code. But their original intentions were not here to come hurt. They were actually here to come help and assimilate and work with us and actually teach us. But our sort of innate behavior, when I say our, I'm talking about mankind and humanity at the time on Earth, influenced them. I'm just paraphrasing the pyramid code now. Influenced them. They became corrupted. They started interbreeding. The race became diluted. And they went from divine rulers and divine leaders to corrupt rulers and corrupt leaders. And right after, at the point of the Exodus, once again, if you go according to the pyramid code, their lineage was completely wiped out. And today they're just remnants in terms of like ancestry and lineage, but not in terms of that power, to my understanding. So I guess there's some alignment in what you just said. I don't follow Corey Good and the other person that you said, so I couldn't tell you. Again, this is, for the most part, this is something that's, when it comes this deep into it, which probably isn't that deep, this is new to me. So I'm learning just as much as probably all of us are. But if we're going according to the pyramid code to clarify just that, they started with good intentions, they became corrupted, and eventually they were wiped out.
Is that a possibility of getting Ray to answer some questions directly, Jason?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
Is there a possibility of getting Ray to answer some questions that you can answer?
No.
Okay, now I was going to say, okay, on that point, right? I suppose the signs were showing, the cracks were showing to them of the corruption started, of the hybridization of their lineage that started. It was when we were reading about how they were incestuous in their relationships, as well as pedophilia was appearing as well, because that's not godly, no divine.
According to our understanding today, you're right, but that's a structure that we put on, not for pedophilia. I'm saying in general, when it comes to, well, first of all, let's say this: pedophilia is absolutely disgusting, and it's something that's not acceptable in our society today. But back then, it wasn't unacceptable, just like in the times of Julius Caesar, it wasn't unacceptable. Julius Caesar was an open pedophile. As a matter of fact, it was like an honor for people to give their children to him because he was such a great man. So as disgusting as it sounds, not justifying or not justifying, just to say that at the time it wasn't seen as something bad. Today, thank God, we see it as something bad, but it wasn't at the time. So how such divine individuals could do something like that? Well, at the time, the individual that you're talking about, by the way, is known as Fatahotep, which was the last high priest before the destruction of the temple, before the destruction of that Fatasol lineage and the whole pharaonic era. That at that point, if you paid attention, they were already becoming corrupted. They could do incredible things, but there was a corruption in that way. So with that being said, I don't know what happened before that Fatahotep, but at that point, there was already corruption problems going on. So just because they had the power, again, doesn't mean they're these amazing Buddha-like light beings. They started that way, they became diluted over time, and I guess pedophilia was a part of the mix at the time. But again, it wasn't looked at something bad. It wasn't looked down upon. Just like 100 years ago, not long ago, and even today in some cases. But just a few decades ago, if you were a gay person in Tennessee, they would tie you to a car and drive with you on sand, on gravel, and hurt you because it was seen to be something bad. And times have changed, awareness has changed. Now it's not, and it's accepted. So over time, things change in terms of our thresholds of what we accept and what we don't. And there was a time where pedophilia was not seen as a negative act.
Nothing divine about that. I mean,
But even things like acts, like sexual acts that are like illegal, whether in religion or society, like adultery, for example. We're given limitations on what's right and what's wrong. But when it comes to sex in between relations of married people, if you go according to Rabbi AA, for example, in the Pyramid Code, he'll tell you, listen, if your wife has no problem with your sexual desires and approves of you sleeping with another woman, then that's allowed. You know, so long as it's done in a way of pure love and giving and everybody's on board, there's no problem with that. Now that's if you ask him. I happen to agree with him. How that translates to kids, I'm personally very against it. I've never asked him about children, but I would assume that he is as well. When it comes to the pharaohs, that's what they did at the time, and that's what people have been doing for a very long time. And over time, as it became more and more not accepted, it didn't stop. It just went underground. So now the elite do it, which, by the way, blows my mind, because when you tell people that certain people in power are pedophiles, they're like, that's impossible. But I mean, 500 years ago, there were people in power that were pedophiles. They just didn't have to hide it. So, you know, it's all a matter of the thresholds of what society is willing to accept, what's deemed right, and what's deemed wrong at a certain point in time.
right, James, any more questions?
I have some questions. Jason, in your book, you were able to pinpoint the exact individuals across vast amount of time, which is basically your soul group, and incarnations and different personalities. First, it's the priestess and the pharaoh himself, your wife. How were you able to determine these individuals, that they were these past incarnations? Were you able to read the Akashic records?
Okay, so first of all, I'm sorry in advance, but I have about 5 minutes before I got to run.
Sorry.
I'll definitely answer your question. Number one, I didn't identify anybody. Like I said, I didn't write the Pyramid Code. The Pyramid Code was given to me by an individual who calls himself Ray. That's his anonymous name. He doesn't want to come out publicly yet. Hopefully we can convince him otherwise. But when it comes to Ray, he has the ability that he was taught and gained over a period of time with TLS to recognize and see and remember past lives through looking into somebody's eyes. It's actually called, if you were to translate it directly from Hebrew, you can actually read about it, I think. It's called the Eye Bible. And I don't know how much of that is public information, but I know that he was taught and given the ability, which he's already had, but he just had to access it, to be able to look at somebody in the eyes and read their eyes in a way to remember certain things, which then brings him back to his memory. So if you want to call that Akashic Records, you can. But if you were to ask him, it's the equivalent of just like I remember when let's say I look at you and me and you had an experience yesterday eating breakfast. I look at you and I can remember that experience. He can look at you and remember an experience from beyond just this life form.
What's the terminology again? The I Bible? The I what?
I mean, that's the translation from Hebrew. I don't know if that's what you're going to find in English, but in Hebrew, it's called Torah Ta'anayim, the Bible of the eyes.
Wow, it's awesome.
So it's
Really awesome.
Jason, if Ray is ready to come out to speak, let him speak here at FESIG. We would like to invite him first. Bear that in mind. Thank you.
let's see how he does what he does.
Oh, thank you, Jason. Back to you, James. Any more questions for Jason? Because we have to wrap it up now because Jason has to go soon.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess one question could be, going back to the water, if they have the technology to take water, if they could travel the stars, why can't they just use their replicators to make water? So what's so special about our water?
That would be a question for them. All I know is that they're not making their own water and they are coming here.
Okay. All right. Next question. When will the majority of the human race realize they've been played for so long? And when, what do you think about that?
When they choose to see what's in front of them.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. I mean, I could give you a complex answer for no reason. It's very simple. When we choose to see what's in front of us, will we see it?
What can we do from an individual standpoint?
Choose. You see, I'm emphasizing choice because that's what it all comes down to.
Okay. All right. What are your thoughts on the pineal gland in connection with our evolution and transdimensional communication?
Very powerful. I mean, I know it's a gland that produces like DMT and other things. I don't know. I haven't learned too much about the pineal gland. I know that there's a big focus on it. When it comes to anybody that I've seen doing supernatural things, it generally has to do with either external tools that are used that help and that are not like with wires, like things that they put on their arms or their heads, things like that, that induce a certain frequency to be able to help them access. I'm sure the pineal gland is associated with that, but I don't know of any direct correlation to focus on that and something's going to happen. I just know that it's involved. I just don't know to what extent.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Do you have any information on what will happen to those who got the jab?
No. I mean, we're already seeing what's happening. Go to VAERS on the CDC website. You'll see that only 1% is reported and 5,000 people died. A bunch of people got heart attacks, miscarriages. Yeah, same thing that's been happening for a very long time. It's probably going to be a little bit worse right now, a lot of bit worse. But I mean, do you really think it's normal that even before this jab, kids had to get 72 different ones to go get an education by the age of 18? People think we're only living in a sick world now. We were living in a sick world for a very long time. People just didn't choose to see it. Now they're choosing to see it because they're forced to, because people are dropping dead. And then the people that are dropping dead, there are certain individuals in power that have the audacity to tell us that it's for a different purpose, and people choose to believe them. It comes down to our choice.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts about Donald Trump supporting this whole agenda?
Maybe a political play. I don't know. I personally don't think he's a part of the system when it comes to that whole agenda. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay. People are acting as if aliens are coming. Do you have any information about what first contact will look like? It will be a false flag or?
First contact's been made a very long time ago. Aliens are not coming. They're already here. Many of them work with TLS. Some of them live here in New York City. And how first contact will be made on a public level, I have no idea, but it will not be done until people are ready to receive that on the collective level.
All right. Is it a good idea to disturb the aether for having free energy?
That's not disturbing. That's working with it. That's why it's there.
Okay. Do you have any information about the transducing method and what it is?
Not that I can share, as other than it's a form of mind manipulation, if you want to choose it, if you want to use those words. I call it mind guidance. You guide the person's mind to do what it is that you need them to do for the purposes that you need them to do it. To my knowledge, transducing is only used by TLS. It was developed by somebody in TLS only recently, about 7 or 8 years ago. And that's pretty much all I could say about that one.
So
All
if
right.
you are the
Electronic-
representative of TLS, is there any way we can be communicating with this organization? Just to ask for some
No,
guidance or help?
It's almost like asking if you can communicate with an undercover branch of the CIA. There's no way to apply. There's no way to reach them. If you need to reach them, they'll reach you. If you need to be a part of them, they will find you.
Okay.
Probably already, if you are one of those people for whatever reason, they probably already know exactly who you are and have been looking at you and following you for a very long time. If not from the day you were born, even before that. So yeah, I don't know what to really call myself when it comes to them, because I don't have anything to base my current actions off of, because nobody has done this before.
Mhm.
So there's no like role model I can look at to say, oh, this is how you do it. This is the right way to do it. It's completely untreaded waters, uncultivated fields completely. So I'm kind of figuring it out. I don't know if the right thing is to call me a representative. I know a lot of people call me that.
Mhm.
I don't know. All I know is that I'm being permitted to speak about certain things and I'm doing it.
Yeah, well, we are in touch with you. That's what counts. Thank you, Jason.
I'm not a formal initiate into the organization, to make that as clear as possible. Not yet, at least. Hopefully one day I will be.
Right. Right. We will let you go because we don't want you to be late for your next appointment. And thank you so much. James, thank you for your wonderful questions, and members of the floor, thank you for your questions, and press for co-chairing. And Pontus, thank you for keeping all of us together with the admin side of things here on this